Did you know that the foods that you eat can influence the rate at which you age by as much as 70%? Which is why it's so important for all of us to be eating the ideal diet. But what is the ideal diet? There are a million ways to answer this question because all of us are unique as individuals, and on top of that, all of us have very different lifestyles, which means that there is no one perfect diet that will suit everybody. There are, however, 3 characteristics to an ideal diet for you. If your diet can give you all 3 of these characteristics, then chances are you're already eating on point. If, however, you say no to one or more of these characteristics, then your diet needs some work. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you what those 3 characteristics are, and I'm also going to be sharing with you my top 3 tips to making sure that your diet is on point. I'm also going to be sharing with you a bonus tip at the end of this video, which has nothing to do with nutrition, so make sure you stay until the end. Hello everyone, Mike Chan here of Lumiere Skin and Spa. Welcome to another edition of 360 Anti-Aging TV. So what are the 3 characteristics of a perfect diet for you? Number 1, can you maintain an ideal body composition? Now, I'm not talking about body weight. Body weight is a total measurement of everything that makes up your physical body. Body composition, on the other hand, is your fat mass versus your fat-free mass. Your fat mass is all the fat stored in your adipose tissue, and your fat-free mass is made up of muscle, organs, connective tissue, bone, and water. Studies show that the higher your fat-free mass and the lower your body fat, the better your health outcomes are. So what are the healthy ranges for body compositions? Official guidelines state that for a male, it is between 6 to 24%, and for the female, it is between 14 to 31%. Now, in my own personal opinion and clinical experience, I find that the most optimal ranges for the male is between 9 to 14%, and for the female, 20 to 24%. Now, a lot of you might say that this is too lean and it is impossible for the average man or woman to attain. Well, to be fair, at 10% or 20%, depending on your physical condition, this is enough to get you qualified for many physique competitions. But I would argue that this is not at all too lean. Studies of traditional hunter-gatherer societies indicate that we are actually quite lean as a species. In this one particular study of the Hadza of Tanzania, it was observed that these people were very lean and active, with body fat percentages on the lower end of the healthy range in Western populations. It is also observed in these studies that these people are remarkably metabolically healthy, free of chronic diseases that plague modern civilization. So, if you want optimal health instead of just average health, you would do very well to keep body fat percentages low. How do you know what your body fat percentages are? The most common way to do this is through the use of machines like a DEXA scanner or specialized scales that you can find in gyms or hospitals that can separate fat mass from fat-free mass. You can also use a caliper to estimate your body fat percentages, but personally, the way I like to do it is just simply by looking in the mirror. Now, this is what 9 to 14% body fat looks like in a male. If you find that this is the image that is staring back at you in your reflection, then 3 stars to your diet. Now, this is what 20 to 24% looks like in a female. Again, if you find that this is what is looking back at you in the mirror, then 3 stars to your diet. Now, keep in mind that these pictures are of trained individuals. As a matter of fact, these were the only pictures I could find online that shows body fat percentages in males and females. Now, keep in mind that untrained individuals will look very, very different at similar body fat percentages. Take a look. You can see that although both men are at around 10% body fat, they look very, very different. And both of these women, while having the same body fat percentages, also look very different. What is interesting to note is that these trained individuals look very, very similar to our hunter-gatherer cousins. Here is an illustration of what low body fat percentages would look like on active but untrained individuals. Again, I want to point out that there's a very big difference between body weight and body composition. And to emphasize this, here are pictures of individuals who have retained their same body weight, but through diet and exercise have managed to change their body composition. You can see that the two phenotypes, although they weigh the same, look very, very different. Criteria number 2, eat a diet where you are not getting fat. Now, gaining weight and getting fat are two very different things. If I put on lean body mass or muscle, then I am gaining weight, but I'm not necessarily getting fat. Why don't you want to get fat? It is because, as I mentioned in my previous video, which if you haven't seen, I can link to in the comment section below, fat is a very efficient storage form of energy, which means you don't need a lot of fat in order to store a lot of energy. Of particular concern when people begin to get fat is developing visceral fat or fat inside your abdominal muscles. Once you begin developing central adiposity, there's a very good chance that you are becoming insulin resistant and that you're already accelerating the aging process. Now, I would like to point out that there are in fact individuals who can put on large amounts of fat and remain metabolically healthy. The medical community calls these individuals healthy obese. But I would argue that they are very, very rare, and 9 times out of 10, if you are putting on large amounts of fats, you're also putting on fat in the viscera, as well as ectopic fat, like fat in your heart, muscles, and liver. Another key to watch out for when talking about optimal health is to avoid putting fat in your liver. This condition is known as a fatty liver, and it is becoming increasingly common in societies eating a Western or standard American diet. This condition has been strongly linked to metabolic syndrome and diabetes. Since the organ is tucked away inside the body, the only way you will know for sure is by going to a hospital and having your blood drawn. You can check for ALT and AST, and if these liver enzymes are high, there's a good chance that you might already have the disease. Another way is by doing an ultrasound or a CT scan so that you can visually confirm if you have the disease. Lastly, even assuming that you are one of these individuals who can carry large amounts of body fat and yet remain metabolically healthy, don't forget that your knees, your hips, your joints, your ankles will all pay the price of these added pounds in your older years. If you find yourself gaining fat on your current diet, make adjustments immediately. A lot of people believe that gaining 1 or 2 pounds every year is normal with age, and so they let it slide and continue with their current diet. I'm here to tell you that creeping obesity is not normal. Going back to our hunter-gatherer relatives, studies show that their weight and body composition remain relatively constant all throughout their lives. Criteria number 3, eat a diet that gives you optimal metabolic markers. A good and healthy diet will reflect on blood work when you check for metabolic markers like insulin sensitivity and inflammation. If these markers are good, there's a very good chance that your diet is already on point. If these markers are off, I don't care if your other results say you are normal, I would dig deeper to find the root cause of the insulin resistance and inflammation, because disease usually follows when these markers are elevated. Now, here are some of the metabolic markers you would want checked when you go in for your next physical. For insulin sensitivity, you would want to have your fasted blood sugar, fasted insulin, HbA1c, and fructosamine tested. Now, these values can give you a pretty accurate indication if you are still insulin sensitive, particularly if you will correlate them with liver enzymes like ALT and AST, and maybe a GGT test. Now, there are other more elaborate procedures like an oral glucose tolerance test or, better still, a Kraft pattern insulin assay. But these tests are quite expensive and very time-consuming to do. And for the most part, all those blood markers that I've given you will already show you to a very accurate degree if you are still insulin sensitive. Remember, the lower you can keep these values, the longer you are delaying the aging process. Next, we check for markers of inflammation. What is inflammation? In a nutshell, inflammation occurs whenever there is an insult or injury that the body must repair. For example, if I get cut or bruised in a certain area, this area will quite possibly bleed, swell, and redden. This is called acute inflammation and it is normal and necessary for life. Then there is chronic low-grade inflammation. Chronic inflammation happens when your body mobilizes these healing factors all the time, trying to put out small damages that is being caused by poor diet and nutrition. Chronic low-grade inflammation has been linked to the development of diseases like cancer, diabetes, stroke, dementia, and heart disease. I'll be doing a separate video on inflammation and insulin resistance. But for the purposes of this video, the way you check for inflammation is by checking high sensitivity C-reactive protein, or HSCRP. You can check for fibrinogen, you can check for homocysteine, and you can check for ferritin. Now this is very, very important. When you have these markers checked, make sure that your results fall within the lower quartile of the reference range. Different labs will use different units of measurements depending on where you are in the world, but they will always give you a reference range so that you and your doctor can check if you fall within normal in these populations. The problem is, studies show that 80% of populations living in Western or developed and developing nations are not healthy. And so, normal for this population can already be sick. So you want to be on the lower end of normal to make sure that your health is optimal. There you have it, the top 3 features of an ideal diet. If your diet gives you all of these 3 characteristics, then congratulations, your diet is probably already perfect for you. If, however, you say no to one or more of these questions, here are 3 things you can do to immediately improve your diet. Tip number 1, eat only whole foods. Remember that refined and processed foods contain the most empty calories and are nutritionally deficient. Eating these foods will not only cause you to consume excess calories, but they also trigger hunger, causing you to eat more and more. Tip number 2, eat more protein. Out of all 3 macronutrients, protein has been shown to give you the best satiety signaling. This means that eating protein will cause you to be full and stay full for longer. Also remember that among all 3 macronutrients, protein has the highest thermic effect of food. What this means is that consuming protein causes the body to burn more calories trying to digest it than the other 2 macronutrients. Tip number 3, practice intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting simply means you are giving yourself a time window wherein you eat. A good place to start would be to do a 16-8 intermittent fast, meaning you're eating for 8 hours of the day and fasting for the remaining 16. Doing this every day has been proven to lower baseline insulin levels, and the lower your insulin levels are, the longer you're going to stay full. So this means it's going to help you prevent binge eating. Last but not the least is our bonus tip. Get adequate sleep. Not getting enough sleep will cause your body to activate its sympathetic nervous system, or the fight or flight mode. This means that your body begins to release insulin and a stress hormone called cortisol. And the combination of these 2 hormones will cause your body to start seeking food, even though you don't necessarily need it yet. So there you have it, my 3 features to a perfect diet. In our 360 Anti-Aging program, I use nutrition as the base of all our anti-aging programs. If you want to know more, you can visit our website at www.lumiereskinandspa.com, or you can visit our social media pages, Facebook and Instagram, Lumiere Skin and Spa. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like me to talk about, please let me know on the comment section below. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so that you're going to be notified every time a new video comes out. As I always say, if you're not aging deliberately, chances are you're not aging well. Until next time, this has been Mike Chan, to your looks and good health. Branch anti-aging and laser clinic called Lumiere Skin and Spa. I'm also a certified medical and laser esthetician, and I've trained with some of the best practitioners both here and abroad. So I'm very, very familiar with what lasers can and cannot do.